What is up? There we go. What's up, everybody? I hope you are having a great Sunday afternoon. For those of you who are into the same type of traditions I grew up in, I hope you guys are having a sacred, blessed Sunday. Hope you all are having an awesome afternoon, blessed afternoon. Welcome, everybody, to the Danny Show, and this is where I give commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. For those of you who are new, welcome to the show. Hope you have a good time, get a few laughs in, and thank you for your views, subscriptions. For all of you who are new, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can be notified on all things from the Danny Show. On this sacred, holy day, 17 years ago, June 13th, 2004, on this day, ironically, this very sacred Sabbath day and date, WWE hosted Bad Blood, which contained an unholy opposite to Sunday match between Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Hell in a Cell. And as we all know, we are gearing up, WWE is gearing up for Hell in the Cell, which is part of the reason I am wearing red. No, I am not into that. Well, I'm not going to talk about that. But either way, I'm wearing red because we're gearing up for Hell in a Cell. And also, it's ironic, as we gear up for Hell in a Cell, one of the things we're talking about on this day is Bad Blood, which is completely red. Red is really starting to become my color this year. But either way, WWE hosted that event, and it had a lot of great matches, a lot of interesting moments. One of the things interesting about that night, Randy Orton versus Shelton Benjamin, long before the Hurt Business with Bobby Lashley, MVP, and Cedric Alexander. But Shelton was very relevant at the time, challenging Randy Orton for the WWE Intercontinental Championship and coming out to interrupt Randy Orton from his self-praising, boasting, arrogant ways. And of course, he played a bit like that behind the scenes. Thankfully, he cleaned up his act. I think that's what Edge was referring to last year when he talked about pulling Randy Orton out of a hole, because Randy Orton did make a lot of bad choices behind the scenes and had a couple of bad habits that he shouldn't have had. But thankfully, he gave all of those habits the RKO. But of course, getting down to sports entertainment business, Shelton Benjamin was set to face off Randy Orton in a match for the IC title. And it was a great match, but here's what's interesting to me is that Shelton came out and interrupted Randy Orton for boasting himself and saying, nobody here came to hear you praise yourself, basically. And of course, what's ironic about that is there were a lot of people there who were actually chanting for Randy Orton, even though Randy Orton was the heel, the villain. And of course, that wouldn't be the only time Randy Orton would get very popular as the heel as time progressed, including there was this very famous cut scene where WWE cameras showed a fan holding up a sign with Randy Orton's face, and it said Legend Killer. That sign would become famous as a Randy Orton fan sign for years to come. So if you are watching this and you held that sign up, congratulations. Your sign will be famous for years to come. I know that had to make the person who held that sign feel very great. But either way, the match was interesting. One of the iconic highlights of that match was when Ric Flair, who came to interfere on the behalf of his Evolution ally, Randy Orton, was caught by Shelton Benjamin, put in his own figure four leg lock. Shelton put Ric Flair in his own move. When Randy Orton came to save Ric Flair from his own hold, Shelton Benjamin rolled Randy Orton up and attempted to get a 1-2-3 pin, all while having Ric Flair in his own hold. That is the highlight of that match, in my personal opinion. However, due to a roll up and pulling the tights, which apparently is illegal, Randy Orton was able to retain the championship and keep the Intercontinental title around his waist or over his shoulder, whatever metaphor you want to put. But also, Bad Blood had a lot of double action with a couple of stars. A couple of Canadian stars, ironically. First, Trish Stratus. Now, let me give you a quick backstory on one of the angles. Of course, Trish Stratus was dating Chris Jericho, and then Chris Jericho was betrayed by Trish at WrestleMania 20 for Chris Jericho's rival and opponent at that night, Christian. Christian is now dating Trish Stratus after the betrayal. That will go down in history as one of the WrestleMania romance betrayals, alongside Eve kicking Zack down low. Zack needs a cup. Ouch. That hurts. But either way, that was one of the WrestleMania betrayals that would be remembered in a top 10 countdown of WWE. But either way, that match got more interesting when Chris Jericho would have problems with Christian's personal bodyguard, Tyson Tomko, whom they would face off at Bad Blood after Tomko powerbombed Chris Jericho through the announce table 3 weeks prior to that night. And I just want to get a quick laugh in. We all know, I gotta say this, I want to make sure I got good time. I gotta get this off me. We all remember Jerry Lawler, excuse me for those of you who are atheists and everything like that, please forgive me. Live however you want to live. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I don't care if it is Sunday. But for those of you who don't believe, I'm sorry. But Jerry Lawler needs Jesus. I mean, Jerry is just the silliest, ridiculous guy when the women would come out on comment to wrestle. He would be saying things in the Attitude Era like, "Oh my gosh, JR, puppies, JR." Like, and I'm watching classic YouTube videos or classic Attitude Era wrestling pay-per-views. I remember watching No Mercy's ladder match from 1999, and all Jerry could talk about was Terry Runnels. Terry Runnels and the puppies, JR. It used to get on my nerves. And here's the dumbest thing. I wanted to get a quick laugh on this, but here's the dumbest thing that Jerry Lawler said that night. As Chris Jericho was set to fight Tomko, Jerry Lawler said that Trish Stratus apparently told Chris Jericho to go to hell. And Jerry Lawler's response was, "Well, JR, if Trish Stratus told me to go to hell, I'd certainly enjoy the ride." What? What? What in the world? Enjoy. But that's Jerry Lawler. Back in the day, Jerry Lawler basically, for sports entertainment purposes and humor, Jerry Lawler was a nasty old man. And thankfully, I'm so thankful that when we see Jerry Lawler calling matches from this day and age, watching the women, like the time I remember he called Sasha Banks versus Becky at Hell in a Cell 2019. Jerry Lawler called that match, and I couldn't help but remember thinking to myself, thank you for keeping your stuff clean. Jesus. Otherwise, you're going to make the same mistake Sammy Guerrero made. And we are all Sammy Guerrero fans, seeing how he helped AEW's Inner Circle stay intact. Thank you, Sammy, for doing that, by the way. Inner Circle rocks. But let's get back down to business. Thankfully, Chris Jericho defeated Tyson Tomko. I just wanted to get a quick laugh on that. But that wouldn't be the only time we saw Trish Stratus. Of course, later on that night, Trish Stratus won a fatal four-way match between 3 other amazing female talents who were actually fighting and not trying to show off how cute they were. And those other 3 were Lita, awesome, Victoria, awesome, and Gail Kim, awesome. 3 of the most amazing talent in Raw, and as well as the future at the time, along with Trish Stratus. But Trish won, becoming a 5-time women's champion, and the first ever 5-time women's champion. So, and of course, Jerry Lawler was having a good time because, of course, it's females and Jerry needs Jesus. So, either way, now, disclaimer, I'm not telling anybody what to do. So, for those of you who are atheists, that I'm just being me and having a little fun. So, I don't want to offend anyone. But either way, moving on, Trish Stratus is not the only Canadian wrestler to have double work or double the fun at Bad Blood. Of course, the man that WWE does not want to mention for certain purposes, which I respect, Chris Benoit, had 2 matches that night. The first one was when he and Edge teamed up to face La Resistance for the World Tag Team Championships. Of course, they were amazing together. They did well together. And I almost thought they were the heels, because usually the heels are always taking control of the tag team match, and it would be 15 minutes later before the good guy tags in his partner and they come in and the adrenaline's going and stuff like that. But it was still great to watch. And of course, unfortunately, we never got it finished because Kane came out and chokeslammed both Edge and Chris Benoit, ending the match off in a disqualification. Kane was set to be Chris Benoit's opponent for the World Heavyweight Championship later on that night, and they had a great match. And I must say, before Brock Lesnar was the mayor of Suplex City, Chris Benoit was the founding father of that city. In my personal opinion, him and Kurt Angle, as well as the Human Suplex Machine, Taz. But the way Chris Benoit and Angle were, they did it much more before Brock did. So, God rest the soul of Chris Benoit. He will always be remembered for the good that he did. And that's how we choose to remember him, for the positive, of course. But moving on, speaking of suplexes, Kane took 6 suplexes altogether from Chris Benoit. The first time he was unsuccessful, but the second time he was successful, Benoit I'm speaking of delivering the flying headbutt. Also, because of the huge size difference between Benoit and Kane, Benoit had a hard time locking in some of his submission holds. He failed the first time, but he was able later on to get the sharpshooter in. Then he tried to get the crippler crossface in, which paved the way for the yes lock. However, that wasn't successful the first time, but later on he was able to get it in. But of course, Kane was not the type to tap out, so it would take a roll-up pin to defeat the Big Red Machine, and Chris Benoit retains the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. But let's get into what we really came to talk about, and that is the Hell in a Cell match between 2 former best friends at the time, Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Before I get into the match, I gotta make this very clear. The promo for that match was extremely amazing. Of course, the promo was backed by the hard rock song by 12 Stones known as Back Up. Of course, the original theme song for Bad Blood by Seether was used for the promo for Kane versus Benoit. So to make it more interesting, they used Back Up by 12 Stones for the promo of Triple H versus Shawn Michaels, which is an amazing song, and it fit the promo so well. The aggression of the promo, people getting smashed around and hit with chairs and stuff, people bleeding, alongside with the heavy rock theme, made the video perfect, the promo package I'm speaking of. And of course, the match itself was 47 minutes long, and less than 5 minutes out of those 47 minutes, Triple H is bleeding, not as profusely, but he's bleeding. And then within 10 minutes of that match, Shawn Michaels' back starts giving him problems. And I believe Shawn Michaels' back started giving him problems when, like the Royal Rumble, he fell a certain angle. Now, we remember at 1998 Royal Rumble with The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels was thrown over the top rope and landed on his back on the edge of that black wooden casket, which injured his back and set the tone for back problems to come. So when at Hell in a Cell, when Shawn Michaels was launched over the top rope, he fell on his back on the apron of the ring, and I think that's what set off a lot of the problems with his back going forth. Triple H would begin to notice those problems and go after the back. Irish ripping him into turnbuckles, giving him, using his knee for the sidewalk backbreaker onto Triple H's knee, as well as a steel chair placed in the middle of the ring. Chair shots to the back will continue, but it's interesting what made Shawn Michaels bleed was not the cell, but like unto Brock Lesnar in The Undertaker 2002, it was when Triple H picked up a steel steps and threw it into Shawn Michaels' face. That's what busted Shawn Michaels open, much like Brock did to The Undertaker at No Mercy. Of course, Shawn Michaels wouldn't stay down. He capitalized later on with a couple of chair shots to the skull of his own. And I gotta say, you can catch this match, some of you can catch this match on Daily Motion, because I don't think WWE is going to play it, because it's not going to do, and if they do, it won't do as much justice, because with it being a PG era, you know they're going to censor every little headshot that happens, including the steps to the skull of Shawn, and Shawn Michaels hitting Triple H with 2 chair shots to the skull. That would be censored, and then we would have to have the gray screen, which comes in every time someone bleeds. So, because of WWE's PG standards, which is partly coming after all the issues involving Chris Benoit, WWE has to censor certain things. So you got to watch it on Daily Motion if you really want to see the aggression at its peak. However, the match would get more interesting when HBK pulled out a ladder and had a smile on his face that looked a little bit malicious, if you will. And that's loosely to say that a smile from Shawn Michaels was malicious, because as we all know, Shawn Michaels is a born-again believer to his own credit. So Shawn is probably coming from church in his own right today. But either way, Shawn had a malicious look, and he used the ladder to his own advantage. Triple H pulled out a table, only to have it used against him when Shawn Michaels delivered, as you will see in the thumbnail, an elbow off the top of the ladder into Triple H, who was on the table. Right through the table, Triple H went. So, after a while, the match began to take its toll. However, Triple H found a way to get in a pedigree, only to have Shawn Michaels kick out. Shawn Michaels came forth and delivered his sweet chin music, but because he was unable to immediately capitalize, when he did, Triple H kicked out of the pinfall as well. Then, back to Triple H, was able to deliver 2, and it took 2 pedigrees, because the second one, Shawn Michaels was still on his back. So when they struggled to get back to their feet, because of course they had been fighting for 47 minutes, it took another pedigree, and Triple H had to crawl to pin, and of course Triple H was the winner of that match. It was a bloody match, and me personally, I must say it was one of my favorite Hell in a Cell matches. So much, it was so aggressive and long that both men needed help being carried out of the arena. Hell in a Cell is a dangerous match, and it was very dangerous during the non-PG years. Let's just get that clear, because even though the cell looks horrifying with the red paint on it, the thing is, the original days of Hell in a Cell were much more aggressive. So that was one of my favorite Hell in a Cell matches, and it was awesome pay-per-view in my personal opinion. And that's all the time I got for you today, and I'll be back another time with another review. And if I'm not back tonight to review In Your House from tonight NXT, I'll be back tomorrow morning to do that. But I can't make any promises, but that's what I'm planning to do. So I'll see you then. Have a nice day. Peace out.